See that back there, man? That's Kobe on the wall back there, man. I just gotta test my my mic. Okay, so it sounds good. We're gonna get right into it. First and foremost, I want to say, call all Yahweh by Shem Shai. What I just said is all praises to the Father in the name of the Son. I also want to say Yahweh by Shem Shai Barakatah, may the Most High in Christ bless. Really, this is about to be hopefully a quick lesson. I'm not gonna go off of what Twitter says. This is something that sparked a little bit of I wouldn't say debate, but an easy dialogue back and forth on Twitter yesterday, and quite literally, man, it's not something that we should be doing in this day and age. So while I do agree that it's not a sin, I do also agree that in this day and age we should not be taking on heathen women, right? I would not condone you to go take a heathen woman. I do not think that you should be going and trying to pursue heathen women, but I would not say if you do, you are in sin, right? It's simple. But yeah, man, yesterday it was just a whole thing, and today is leading into what I gotta do for the lesson today. So we're gonna start here. This is Deuteronomy chapter 7, verse 1. It says, "When Yahweh thy power shall bring thee into the land, right, whither thou goest to possess it, right, and have cast out many nations before thee, the Hittites and the Girgashites, and the Amorites, and the Canaanites, and the Perizzites, and the Hivites, and the Jebusites, 7 nations greater and mightier than thou." This here means that this is the subject matter. This here is the subject matter, and what's explained or expounded upon after this until the period. Right? This is basic English sentence structure, right? But until the period, this is all the same sentence. It's all the same subject. It's all the same thing, right? They don't differentiate. So the stipulations for it, man, would be from verse 1, right? Whatever is following after verse 1 is talked about what's happened in verse 1, man. Verse 2 and 3 are based upon the subject matter of verse 1. When the Lord brings us into the land where we go to possess it, right? And these nations here, that's the subject matter. We cannot go and say, oh yeah, well, there's one of these somewhere else in this passage. That's not the case, man, except for here, right? Meaning that verse 2 it says, "And when the Lord thy power shall deliver them before thee." So these people, the subject matter now is when the Lord shall deliver them before you, when they're in your face, thou shalt smite them and utterly destroy them. Right? Thou shalt make no covenant with them, nor show mercy unto them. Right? Now this is going into a run on, right? And then it says, "Neither shalt thou make marriages with them," right? And then this is the subject matter for what's going on up here, man. This is going into this is going into that, that's going into this, and this is going into this, right? "Thy daughter shalt thou not give unto his son, nor his daughter shalt thou take unto thy son," right? So now we got all these 7 nations, man. Let's deal with this, right? Right? Now, this is the one that brothers would like to use to say, look, man, Solomon sinned with this, man. But we got to understand, man. Right? It says, 1 Kings chapter 11, verse 1, "But King Solomon loved many strange women. That was not the sin." Right? "Together with the daughter of Pharaoh, women of the Moabites, Ammonites, Edomites, Zidonians, and Hittites." Hittites were mentioned in verse 1 of Deuteronomy 7 and 1. Right? So it says, "Of the nations concerning which the Lord," right, "said unto the children of Israel, ye shall not go in unto them," the Hittites, "neither shall they come in unto you," the Hittites, right? "For surely they will turn away your heart after their gods." Solomon clave unto these in love, right? And then verse 3 it says, and he had 700 wives, princesses, and 300 concubines. And his wives, if you want to be technical, wives are the children of Israel, turned his heart away his heart. But we know that it was not the daughters of Zion that turned his heart away, but the strange women, because he went after their ways, right? It's not being the act of taking these women, but it's going after their ways that is the sin, man. Now the Hittites, that's sin. That's playing upon tables, right? For it came to pass when Solomon was old that his wives turned away his heart after other gods, and his heart was not perfect with Yahweh his power, as was the heart of David his father. And then if you keep on going, for Solomon went after Astoreth, right, the goddess of the Zidonians, and Milcom, the abomination of the Ammonites. It literally tells you he went after their gods. That is the sin here, man. Right? So what about this one, man? Right? What about this one? Right? What about this one? In Nehemiah 13 verse, we could start at 26, but I'm going to start at verse 23 because we got to get some context with this, man. Right? Because we got to understand that these people were not mentioned in Deuteronomy 7, right? But we're going to see here what the sin was, man. Right? So it says in Nehemiah 13 and 23, it says, in those days I saw Jews that had married wives of Ashdod and Ammon and Moab. Oh, and why don't it say here, of whom the Lord said not to go into them? And it don't say that here, man. Right? Even... Okay, this actually... Okay, I was going to go here, man. But we're going to continue on, right? It says, and their children spake half in the speech of Ashdod, and could not speak in the Jews' language, but according to the language of each people. So they speak the language of Ashdod, of Ammon, and of Moab. That was the language they spoke, man. Right? How do you teach your children about the law, statutes, commandments in Hebrew, right, if they only know the language of the lands, right? It's not possible, right? But this is the one that you could really go and be like, look, man, this is what it is. And I contended with them and cursed them and smote certain of them and plucked off their hair and made them swear by God, saying, ye shall. So he didn't say the commandment says, he says Nehemiah, or if I'm not mistaken, this is Ezra, but don't quote me on that, right? But if this is Nehemiah, right? Nehemiah told these Jews, or these people here, man, right? He said he made them swear. He didn't make them keep the commandments. He made them make a covenant. He made them swear by the Lord. This is where we missing the mark here, man. This wasn't a sin for them, man. He just said, I made them swear by the Most High. That was it, right? And it says, ye shall not give your daughters unto their sons, nor take their daughters unto your sons for yourselves, right? Now, this is the thing that we seeing that people gonna be like, but look at here, this is a complete sentence, right? So that ends the point, right? Verse 26 is a whole nother idea, right? Because it says, did not Solomon, king of Israel, sin by these? Right? Yet among many nations was there no king like him, who was beloved of God, and God made him king over all Israel, right? But then let's tell you what the sin it was, right? It says, nevertheless, even him did outlandish women, hold on, were the outlandish women the sin? Or did the outlandish woman cause him to sin? It says, nevertheless, even him did outlandish women cause to sin. The outlandish woman was not the sin here, man. Right? And I'm not condoning being with heathen women, but I'm just going according to the Bible, and the Bible do not say that going in unto another woman that's another nation, that's not the 7 nations in Deuteronomy 7, that's not a sin, man. Let's continue on, man, right? Verse 27, because this was another thing that was used, right? Shall we then hearken unto you to do all this great evil, to transgress to transgress against our God and marrying strange wives, right? So this is them asking a question, man, right? To transgress against our God and marrying strange wives, that would be like, okay, that's the nail in the coffin, right? But the thing is, man, it's not about transgressing against the Most High in this case, because the great evil is going into sin, man. Right? These people were already in sin because Nehemiah 13:24 was literally speaking about how they did not teach their children the way. So now their children here in Nehemiah 13 actually were already in sin. Right? And if I'm not mistaken, in this passage here, man, they did not tell them to put away the strange children. They just told them to put away the strange wives, if I'm not mistaken, man. Right? And I'm not sure on that. Don't quote me on that, man. Right? But here, man, it says, so I'm going to keep on going, right? It says, and one of the sons of Joiada, right, the son of Elishab, right, the high priest was son-in-law of Shanbalat the Horonite. Therefore I chased him from me, right? So this was a high priest, a Levite. Remember them, oh my God, because they have defiled the priesthood, right? And the covenant of the priesthood of the Levites. Verse 22. Now we got to go back up some more, man. Verse 21. Then I testified against them and said unto them, why do you lodge about the wall? If you do so again, I will lay hands on. Verse 22. And I commanded the Levites that they should cleanse themselves and that they should come and keep the gates and sanctify the Sabbath day. Remember me, oh my God, concerning this also, and spare me according to the greatness of thy mercy, man. This is all the same thing, man. The Levites here, man, weren't taking care of the temple, man, right? But we can't even say that. We can't even say that because he commanded them to do that. But why is the Levite mentioned here, man? Right? And that they defiled the priesthood. Was the law for the priest? What's the law for the priest? Right? Hold on, now I gotta Google that, man, because now we not gonna go here, right? We just gonna go like this real quick because I wanted the Bible Gateway, right? Okay, so we're just gonna go to Leviticus 21, right? Leviticus 21, because this is the law about Levi, not about all Israel, man. Levi 21:13, right? And this is why it would be a sin, right, for them to go into strange wives, man. Right? This is Leviticus 21:13, that says, and he shall take a wife in her virginity, right? We got to jump up to verse 1 in Leviticus chapter 21, verse 1, and it says, and the Lord spake unto Moses, speaking to the priests of the sons of Aaron, and say unto them, there shall be none defiled for the dead among his people. So this is literally to the Levites, right? So, or the priest, the high priest, right? Or the priesthood, right? So verse 13 is talking about, and he shall take a wife in her virginity, a widow or a divorced woman, or profane or an harlot. These shall he not take, right? But he shall take a virgin of his own people to wife, right? And that people here is actually talking about own tribe, right? Verse 15 though, it says, neither shall he profane his seed among his people, for I the Lord doth sanctify him, right? So yeah, this ain't talking about the Israelites. It's talking about a Levite, not all of the children of Israel. The Levites were only supposed to deal with the Levites. Oh, Tobit was from the tribe of Naphtali. So now we definitely got to go into Tobit, because it still don't make a difference of Tobit or not, man. Right? Because Tobit, verse 12. Tobit chapter 4, verse 12, it says, beware of all whoredom, my son. This ain't talking about anybody else other than Tobit to Tobias. Verse verse 2, it says, and said with himself, I have wished for death, wherefore I not call for my son Tobias, that I may signify him to him of the money before I die, right? And when he had called him, he said, my son, when I am dead, bury me, and despise not thy mother, but honor her all the days of thy life, and do that which shall please her, and grieve her not. So this is literally Tobit to Tobias. This ain't a law given to Israel, man. I hate to say that, man, because it's great doctrine, man. Right? This is great to take hold to, but when it comes to a law, I hate to say it, it's not law though, man. Right? So continuing on, man. It says, Tobit 4 and 12, it says, beware of all whoredom, my son. This is to his son, right? And this is all to his son. Even though we use this in the times of bringing precepts out, this is still to Tobit to his son, man. And this is wise words of wisdom, man. But it is not law, man. Right? And it says, unless he says, thus saith the Lord, thou shalt not do this, right? Then it's not a law, man. Right, but it says, my son, and chiefly take a wife of the seed of thy fathers, right, and take not a strange woman to wife, which is not of thy father's tribe. This is literally the same thing that the Levites were commanded to do, right? And I'm not going to mention a brother that I was having a discourse with on Twitter, man, because I love the brother, and I don't want to put him out there in that light, man. Right, I've already dealt with the brother on the one-to-one. This is just for edification of my congregation purposes, man. But the brother, I posed a question to the brother that if we're gonna go with Tobit 4, does that mean that we can only marry within our tribe? If I'm from the tribe of Benjamin and I take on a Judite wife, do that mean that I'm in sin? Question didn't get answered. But that's what this is saying. If this is law, then if you take a Judite wife as a Benjamite or a Naphthalite or a Levite or so on and so forth, man. And the Levite is actually the only case where it's a sin if you want to do the office of a priesthood, which all Levites supposed to be in the office of the priesthood, but that's rather here nor there, right? But which is not of thy father's tribe, man. So literally what we see that being sin, given this precept, right? It's not a sin, man, right? And if you're gonna use this, you gotta stand firm to that. You need to be with Judah if you Judah, Benjamin if you Benjamin, Levi if you Levi, Ephraim if you Ephraim, Manasseh if you Manasseh, right? That's what you need to stick to, because that's what this verse is saying, right? It says, for we are the children of the prophets, Noah, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And literally Noah, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, they didn't just take the people of their own tribe or their own kin. Let's go to Jacob. Jacob had 2 wives and 2 handmaids. Handmaids were not Israelite, or not, none of these women were Israelites, of course. But none of them were, the 2 were not of kin. Those 2 handmaids were not of kin. They were Hamitic nations, right? Abraham, if I'm not mistaken, correct me if I'm wrong, but he had Hagar, right? And Hagar was Hamitic handmaid as well, that Sarah gave unto him, right? Was Ishmael conceived in sin? I could be wrong on that, don't quote me, but that's what I believe, man. Right? Noah only had 1 wife, so that's not really the point I wanted to make, man. Right? But we got to go off of that, man, because this is what he's saying. We are the children of the prophets, right? Remember, my son, that our fathers from the beginning, even that they all married wives of their own kindred. No, right? Because yes, the wives, the Jacob and Rebecca and or not Rebecca, Jacob, Leah and Rachel. Yes, those are the kin. But the handmaids, right? That's not a wife. It's not. It's a concubine, right? But it's still a lesser wife, man. Right? So yes, when you go into the wife, yes, the wives were all Israelites, but they were dealing with other women that were not Israelites of their kin, right? But they were dealing with women that were not of their kindred, right? And were blessed in their children. Now we got to go with the children because not Ephraim, Reuben, not Reuben. Reuben was the firstborn of Leah. Salakia, Naphtali, Gad. I think Levi, but I might be mistaken. Um, It's it's a bunch of them, man. Right? It's a bunch of them that was born of Bilal and the other one, man. Right? It might not even be Bilal, man. Right? But it says, and were blessed in their children, and their seed so inherit the land. Right? The 12 patriarchs, the 12 tribes of Israel, we were not all conceived of the same kindred. So that means that outside of the kindred, outside of the Hebrew bloodline, man, these people are accepted into the way, man. Right? You can't use this and then not say that you have to marry a woman of the children of Israel. If you're gonna use this, you're gonna have to use this and say that this is for all the children of Israel to marry within their tribe, man. Now this one here, man. This one here is a cold precept, man, because this cut up everything that we know, man, right, or everything that we think, right, because this ain't about an Israelite, man. This ain't about an Israelite wife, even in the slightest, man, right, because this is Moses here, man. Moses is here, man, right, and according to the laws of Moses, we can't hate our brother in our heart. So if we hate our brother in our heart and we go into war with our brother, that means that we got some type of hate in our heart towards our brother if we want to see them dead. The Bible even says that thou shalt not kill, right? So we shouldn't be at war with our brothers, right, to where we can kill them and take their wives captive, because we technically can't captivate or take captive Israelite woman, man. Right, look, it's Exodus 25, if I'm not mistaken, man. The women can be bought, but she can't be treated like the captives, man. Right? So these women too, man, they can't loose the shoe off the foot, man. Just so we know, like Ruth, right? But we're gonna go here, man. Right? Ruth was a Moabite, man. You can see through the customs in Ruth, the book of Ruth, that Ruth wasn't an Israelite. She wasn't a Moabite. She said, "I will cleave unto thy people, and your God shall be my God." Right? Let's get that, man. Right? But before I get there, let's continue on this, man. This is Deuteronomy chapter 24, verse Salakia. Deuteronomy chapter 21. Right? I'm looking for the one in Ruth. I'm about to get done with this real quick, man, because I really didn't want to even be going this long with this dream, man. I thought this was gonna be a quick one, man, but I actually didn't make it that way. So it happens. So this is Deuteronomy chapter 21, verse 11 and verse 10 actually. When thou goest forth to war against thine enemies, it's not about the Israelites, man. This is actually quite literally talking about the enemies that are the Jebusites, the Hebrides, the Canaanite, the 7 Canaanite nations. It said Deuteronomy 7, that is 7 Canaanite nations or 6 Canaanite tribes, man. Right? But it's rather here nor there, right? So it says, and Yahweh thy power have delivered them into thine hands, and thou hast taken them captive. Where do we see in the Bible that Israelites are taking other Israelites into captivity? And see, it's among the captives as a beautiful woman, right, and has desire unto her. This is Samson to the fullest, man. Right? Samson had Delilah, and he had desire unto her. The Lord quite literally put it on Samson's heart to have desire unto Delilah. Right? What was Samson in sin by having desire unto the Most High? I mean, unto Delilah. Was Samson in sin when he took Delilah to be his wife? Now, Samson died, but Samson did not die of sin. Samson died protecting the kingdom, pretty much, man. That's what the Lord used him, man. Right? It was not a sin. We would have to use this and be like, yeah, look, man, what about Samson? With this whole video What about Samson? Right? What about Moses? Right? What about Moses? Right? Come on, we gotta do the math, man. Put the maths together. Do the mathematics, man. What about these people? Because literally, we can't say that Samson wasn't sent or Moses wasn't sent, and they both had heathen wives. They wives then turned their heart away from the Lord. What about Boaz, man? Boaz had Ruth the Moabite. Now Israel will teach that Ruth is not is a Israelite. Some Israel would teach that, man, but the Bible teaches that Ruth was an Israel was a Moabite, and we're gonna show that in a very short moment here, man. Right. So continuing on, man. Right. It says that thou wouldest have her to thy wife, man. Right, and thou shalt bring her home to thine house, and she shall shave her head and pare her nails. Where do we see Israelite women? Now, in Nehemiah 13, we see that Nehemiah was ripping their hair out, the men, but not the women, right? Because that was about the men taking on strange wives, not the other way around, right? Which is possible, but it ain't the other way around in here, man. Right, verse 13, and she shall put the raiment of her captivity from off her, and she shall remain in thine house and bewail her father. Why is she mourning her father? Because he died in the war, right? And her mother a full month, and after that she shall go. Thou shalt go in unto her and be her husband, and she shall be thy wife, man. Right? Okay, and then here it says, and it shall be, if thou have no delight in her, then thou shalt let her go whither she will, but thou shalt not sell her at all for money. Thou shalt not make merchandise of her, because thou hast humbled her. Right? So if you don't humble this woman, you can make merchandise of her, because she's not an Israelite. That's what it is, man. Right? But since you humbled her and made her your wife, now you can't make a profit off of this woman, man. Right? If she was your property as a servant, right, you could make you can make profit off of a servant that's not a Hebrew, right? But a Hebrew servant, you can't. You gotta let go freely either way. So this is literally talking about a heathen, man. This ain't talking about the children of Israel, man. This about the heathen women, man. This about two wives. This is an easy way to cut up anything that's talk about not having two wives. The brother actually went into this yesterday, man, and he didn't actually give me no back talk with us, man. He really just like, oh yeah, man, I just don't agree with it, and that's perfectly fine, man. Right? I don't agree with marrying strange wives in this place, man. Now, if you're gonna take them to be a harlot, hey, I gotta do this in big screen. If you're gonna take them to be a harlot, you gotta do what you gotta do, man. Right? Judah had a harlot, man. Right? Solomon had knowledge of the price of a harlot. Right? Judah dealt with a harlot, though, man, and it was only sin because he was dealing with the specific one he was dealing with. If it wasn't that harlot, man, he would have got away with it, man. And he would have been like, okay, she got my signet and my he gave her a staff, I think, man. Right? So he gave her a rod and a signet, man, and she took it, and then he's like, whoa, you the one I had, man? Oh, damn. Right? Yeah, that's what it is, man. You can't go into these women, into our women like this, man. Right? Our women, you got to deal with accordingly, man. But the other nations, man, they free game, man. Right? Try to piece it all together, because I got Deuteronomy 7 already. I got Nehemiah 13 already. I got I could go into Ezra 9 and 10, but Ezra 9 actually that's what I wanted to get. That's what I wanted to get. Ruth chapter 1, and I gotta start at 1. It says, now it came to pass in the days when the judges ruled that there was a famine in the land, and a certain man of Bethlehem, Judah, went to sojourn in the country of Moab, he and his wife and his 2 sons. Now, we gotta understand, this man went into Bethlehem, or out from Bethlehem, Judah, into the land of Moab. If it's Israelites in the land of Moab, that mean that either one, Israelites were having sex with Moabites, which we do see, but this is Judges. I'm not sure if this book of Judges actually it does. Judges would predate. Hold on. Does Judges predate Ruth? Or not Ruth? No. Because Ezra and Nehemiah were during the same time. So if that's even more of a cut, man. So if the events that happened in Ruth 1 or Ruth, the entire book of Ruth, predated Ezra and Nehemiah, you can't say that the war that was going on and even Judges, but it's got, I want to say Judges, not Judges, Nehemiah and Ezra, the events that happened in Nehemiah and Ezra happened after Ruth. Where does an Israelite Moabitess woman come from? Did an Israelite already dwell in the land of Moab and have children with a daughter of Moab? And now she's an Israelite because she had an Israelite father? If that's the case, that means that Ruth was conceived in sin. Ruth being a Moabite is very problematic. Ruth being an Israelite becomes very problematic, actually, man. Not her being a Moabite, but her being an Israelite becomes very problematic because if she was already in the land of Moab and she had an Israelite father, that means her Israelite father was in sin by conceiving Ruth with a Moabite wife. Either way, it would be problematic. Was Ruth conceived in sin? What makes it okay for you to take Ruth as a Israelite child now, and she's an Israelite, and then now we gotta put off the strange wives in Ezra 9 and 10, right? Read Ezra 9 and 10. I'm not going to make this a big video about Ezra 9 and 10. Read Ezra 9 and 10. And you see the details about the Hittites, the Girgashites, the Jebusites, Moab, and Ammon, and all that. And read that, man. Tell me how that comes out to what I just said. Because they took them, verse 4, they took them wives of the women of Moab. So this one literally says, Elimelech, Naomi's husband, died, and she was left and her two sons, and her sons took wives of the women of Moab. Not wives of the inhabitants of Moab, right? Because if it said the inhabitants of Moab, now we gotta go and be like, okay, that might be some children of Israel inhabiting the land of Moab, right? It says they took the wives of the women of Moab, not of the Moabitish women, right? And it says the name of the one was Oprah and the name of the other was Ruth, and they dwelled there about 10 years, right? So let's keep on going down, man. But we gotta really get to this verse 16, man. Cause Oprah, man, she wasn't really feeling it, man. She wasn't about getting down with the Yahweh Shem Yahushai, man. Right? And I say Yahweh Shem Yahushai in this time too, man. Because Yahushai was still around, man, right? Whether we want to accept it, believe it, understand it or not, Yahushai was around during this time, man, right? I am the root and offspring of Jesse. I am the root and offspring of David. That's what this is talking about. Christ always been, man, since the beginning of time. Not always, but since the beginning of time, Christ has always been. From the beginning to the end. He is the beginning of time. He is the ending of time. Not the Ancient of Days. Not the Ancient of Days. That's for the brother Fat, man. Right, we're going to get into that soon, too, man. But this is Ruth chapter 1, verse 16. And Ruth said, entreat me not to leave thee, or to return from following after thee. For whither thou goest, I will go. Where thou lodgest, I will lodge, man. She says, I'm not trying to leave you. I want to be with you all the days of my life, man. Right, and it says, thy people. So she says, your people, not my people. Because if it was her people, she would already said, what's the point of saying thy people shall be my people and thy God my God? What's the point of that if it's already her guy? From the beginning, as the Israelite, it's her guy. And from the beginning, as an Israelite, they're her people. She said, no, I'm going to abandon my people. And I'm going to go after your people. I'm going to abandon my ways and I'm going to follow your ways. This is literally what, not this, but Deuteronomy 21 is talking about. Deuteronomy 21 is talking about this situation where the woman, she ain't do all the rest of the stuff where she shave her head and do all this stuff, if I'm not mistaken. Ain't nothing in here about her shaving her head or none of this, man. Right? And I'm almost certain that it's not, man. So she didn't shave her head or none of that, but she did everything else, man. Right? She said, cause she couldn't really do everything else, man, because she was in her own land. Ain't no telling when after she got out of her own land, right, and came back into Bethlehem, right, that she might have did this behind closed doors where nobody seen it, man. We gotta understand, man. In the scripture, we don't have the women's side of these stories, man. We don't know what they go through upon coming into covenant with a man, man, or a marriage, man. Right? We don't have their stories. We don't know what they would say, man. We know what the men tell us, man. The men might have been like, look, man, we don't need to know too much about this, man. Let's just write the rest of this, man. Right? Because it is what it is, man. So, yeah, man, I feel like this is a good enough lesson and edifying enough to express what the point is, man. Right? What I would need to know if I'm wrong, man, is now if taking on foreign women is a sin, does that mean that our children, like Ezra 9 and 10, right? We got to put all away our strange children, right? Because Ezra 9 and 10, if you want to say that, well, you was out the truth when you had them strange children. What about if I had them in the truth too? Then? But if I had them outside the truth, like Ezra 9 and 10, man, Ezra 9 and 10 will tell you to put off the strange children and wives. Don't deal with them no more. Do we put off the strange children and wives like Ezra 9 and 10? Right? And given the ideology, man, Israel is not all black only, man. We can't go by that, man. Israel is a speckled bird, man. So now we got to understand if it is not just about our children being put off now, what do we do? Right? And then if it's about me coming into the truth moment and now my children are okay, what about if I have a harlot or I deal with a woman that's not an Israelite in this truth, right? And I have children by her. Do those children conceived by her, even if she does not keep the ways of the world and she actually underneath me, she shaved her head, she did everything according to what the Torah say, man, right? Even if she didn't do everything according to the Torah say, but I had children with this woman in the truth, right? Does that make them children not Israelites now? And if I have been duly obligated to teach these children to keep the ways, right? Keep the feast days and keep the faith in Yahweh Shai, man. If my children know that and they are of a heathen mother while I'm in the truth, not while I'm out the truth, not before I got into this truth, but while I'm in the truth, does that mean that my children conceived of foreign women are no longer Israelites? We gotta deal with this stuff, man. Right? This is the questions that I have if we saying that we can't deal with, or it's a sin to deal with these things, man. What's the cause and effect? What's the action, or what's the reactions for my action? What is the consequence for me taking on these strange women? And if it is, we would have to go off of what happened in the rest of the Bible, which means that I got to put off my children, and I should not be telling my children the ways of the Most High if they are strange women. That would be the doctrine that all Israel have to teach them, right? And quite literally, all Israel don't teach that having strange wives is a sin, right? Most of Israel that keep the Saturday Sabbath, no offense to the brothers that keep a Friday sundown and Saturday sundown, but most of the brothers that keep that Sabbath, man, they would teach that it's wrong, man. But the brothers who keep a lunar Sabbath, and this is just a pattern I recognize, man. Typically, those brothers, though, man, they will recognize that, look, man, this is what is an issue. this is what the Bible says, and this is what's being taught, right? And what the Bible says trumps what's being taught every single time. So Deuteronomy 7:1 is about that those nations, and Deuteronomy 7:2 and 3 are about Deuteronomy 7:1. There's no other way around it. You can't dispute it. And if you think that the verses that I just brought out disputed, the only one I would argue that might have a little bit of weight to it is Nehemiah 13:27, man, where it says outlandish woman. Nope, the one after that where it says even in these did Solomon sin. That's the only one. But the subject matter of Solomon sinning is in 1 Kings 11, right? How the Hittites and the wives caused him to sin. It wasn't that he had outlandish women. The outlandish women caused him to sin. That's in this way, my car back that way. So with that, man, it's plain upon tables. If you don't understand it, it is what it is, man. Most of Israel that have the understanding of me would be like, yeah, man, this brother got the knowledge, man. And brothers that don't got the understanding as me, they would be like, look, man, that's all. Right? But at the end of the day, man, what I teach is now is not the time to be taking on strange women. Right? Now is the time to cleave unto your own and cleave to the words and follow the ways of the Most High. Try and raise up some Israelite seeds, because if you go into a heathen woman and you try and make her your wife, now you got to get a paper marriage. Now the state got control over most of your marriage, actually, man. And now you got to do the ring ceremony. And now you got to do Christmas and Easter and all this stuff that's going into other guys. Now, we was on Twitter today, man, talking about the rings and the customs of the rings and how they relate to the rings of Saturn and how they are pagan. Right? That's one thing we was going in on today on Twitter, man. And I actually, it's probably notifications right now on Twitter about that, man. Right? That is a custom of the heathen. We don't do that, man. Right? That's something that we don't do. But when it comes down to these things, man, we know that we don't want to be led into sin. So why would we take on a heathen wife if we don't need to teach them the truth, and we're not going to have them following the ways? We want a woman that's going to teach our children the good things, man. Right? Not the things that's like, okay, well, maybe I could teach the children this and you could teach the children that. That might, to be real, man, that might be why my eyes have not found a good rib yet, man. Because I'm thinking like I just want to have a rib that's going to cook and clean, and then I deal with the spirituals of it, man. Right? Yeah, when I have kids, they not going to do this, man. But you could start telling a woman, I don't want my kids doing this, that, and the third. And now you dealing with this woman for X, Y amount of time, man. Right? That's why proper court and this procedure, and it helps, man. But I learned this throughout the walk, man. But literally, you'll be arguing and talking or just having a discussion about it, man, and then it'll turn to the dire consequences, man. Well, you could do this, but I'm going to do this with them. And then you start compromising, but you no compromising for this truth, man. Right? And that's where I currently lay at with this truth, man, because I know I can't compromise, so I'm not going to take a rib that's not willing to follow my ways, or at least understand that if we have children, I'm not going to teach them this, that, and the third. It's just not happening, right? So, it's simple, man. Playing upon tables. With that, I want to say shalom. How about Shem Yahshai Barakatah, EGA, till we see the day. Kwame Yahshai.